It's my pleasure to welcome you here this evening. YES is a community organization that's supported the English community in finding employment and starting and growing businesses for over 25 years. We provide services across the province targeted at job seekers up to the age of 40, artists and entrepreneurs of any age and any stage of business. Our offerings include free or low-cost personalized services and resources, one-on-one employment counseling, business coaching, skills-building workshops, networking events, access to legal and accounting services, and mentorship. And this evening, I'm especially excited to welcome our new acting executive director, Marina Boulos-Swinton. And Marina joins us from a robust history of community work, most recently serving as the executive director at Chez Doris for 10 years. So Marina, I'd like to welcome you to YES, your very first event with us, and invite you up to say a few words.
So thank you very much. The reason why I was so interested in joining YES is because for 10 years, I worked for an organization that helped homeless and vulnerable women. And if people don't have jobs, they become extremely vulnerable. So having employment and having thriving business is really important to Montreal and to the greater community. So I'm thrilled to be among you.
So a little bit about our speaker series this evening. So it's all about helping entrepreneurs achieve success and by sharing essential tools and guidance, and that's really at the heart of what YES does. There's so many options in retailing today, and it can really be challenging to see what is the right one for you. Is it e-commerce? Is it a pop-up storefront? Maybe it's a mix that can help you reach your clientele or showcase your product. So tonight's panel of experts has, again, as mentioned, an incredible wealth of experience and learnings to share with you. So no matter where you are along the path of your journey. So we'll have the chance to continue and connect with each other again as well after the panel. So I do want to introduce Anthony. So over there, Anthony is going to be moderating our panel this evening. And Anthony is the co-owner and CFO of everyone's favorite snack chain, Beaver Tails. I know it's one of mine. With background in accounting and extensive experience in various retail methods, pop-ups, mobiles, storefronts, and e-commerce, Anthony is sure to make every effort pay off. And Anthony, today, there was also a note that your leadership team are finalists for EY's Entrepreneur of the Year 2024 in Quebec. But you are finalists, so congratulations, and we can't wait to hear more about that, so good luck. Okay. We've also been really lucky too throughout the years. Did you know that Anthony has a twin brother as well? He has a twin brother named Pino, and we've been really lucky over the years to call both. Do you see? Yeah. So we've been really fortunate to call both Anthony and Pino volunteers to YES over the years too. They've been really great partners to us. We really appreciate everything. So without further ado, why don't I call you up now and turn it over to you, Anthony.
Thank you, everyone. Now, I'm a CFO, so you know I'm a stickler for numbers, and I'm a stickler for time. And it's bothering me that we're behind already, because these guys have so much to say, and Jennifer has so much to say. But thank you very much. Thank you for being here. You're going to learn everything there is to know about the economics of the Formula One industry. That's what today's topic is. I'm kidding. We're going to be dealing with retail, so don't walk out. You're at the right session. But I'd like to introduce the panelists. We're going to start with Jennifer. Jennifer is going to scoot on over to her chair. Jennifer is the founder of Euro Naturals, so skincare. I kind of get away from her because I don't want her examining my pores and telling me I'm not doing well, so I give her a space. But welcome. Thank you very much for joining us. And in no particular order, I'm going to get, I never knew Carl's last name. It's Carl Boutet. So Carl, if you want to come, he's the chief strategist, founder of Studio RX. And he's going to be joining us on the panel. I'm rushing through this part because, again, we have a lot of ground to cover, and you'll get to know all the panelists better. And finally, we have Charles de Brabant. He is the executive director of the Ben Sadoun School of Retail Management here at McGill. And I know I'm a proud Montrealer. Wait till you hear what the school has been doing in Montreal. It's shocking and something to be proud about for all Montrealers. So let's get this shocking in a great way. Come on down. Let's all have a seat. Let's get accommodated here.
Oh, we're doing both because I think we're doing audio and.
Yeah. So we do need to speak in both. That's what I was told to you.
You guys hear us okay? Just making sure, yeah?
1, 2, 1, 2.
Great. So, I was kidding. You're here to learn about retail. I'm sure there's some of you in the room who either have taken the plunge or are hoping to take the plunge, and you're here tonight to say, hey, I need help. I'm kind of flipping and flopping, and I'm going to put my life's hand in this panel. I'm going to learn about the retail industry. And I think that we're on the verge of huge changes in the industry. I'm going to be throwing out some quotes to you guys tonight because I'm not that smart, and I'd like to share with you what smarter people have said. I'm going to start with Harley Finkelstein. Harley is the president of Shopify. In 2021, so not that long ago, only 3 years ago, Harley said more people Googled how to start a business than how to get a job. And he said this is not just the year of the entrepreneur, but this is the start of a new era when being an entrepreneur is people's first choice. So you're not alone. You're in great shape, you're in great company, and like I said, we're hoping to help you on your journey tonight. And what better way to start on this journey? I'm gonna start with Jennifer, because Jennifer, I don't think it's much of a stretch to say not that long ago you were probably in that position wondering the same thing. Do I take the plunge? Do I go into retail? What was it that made you finally take that plunge?
Yeah, it's a scary plunge. So I wanted to help people, basically. That's what called me to retail. So my son had really severe eczema as a baby, and it was really, really hard. And when we finally figured out the answers were natural skincare and protective clothing, I wanted to make that easily available for other people and other parents going through that. And so I didn't see a way, and then there wasn't an easy way. So I created my own store, selling other people's products and made them available, and it grew, and then I created my own brand. And so that's why it was a call to help people get through a really hard time. It was something very difficult for me. E-com specifically, I went that route because I wanted to be able to work at home with my small kids. And I found that it was just so much easier. It was less expensive and it was less of a risk to start at home. And you also had a bigger reach. So that was why I chose that route. So,
what better reason to go into a business to help people? You know, and we talk about doing things that you love and doing things that you're passionate about. That's it right there. And there's nothing left for me to say on that one. Retail. We know it's a tough business. We know it's competitive. Yet people keep going into it. There's something about it that makes it special, right? Howard Schultz, he's the former CEO of Starbucks. He famously said, you walk into a retail store, whatever it is, if there's a sense of entertainment, excitement, and electricity, you want to be there. I don't get that feeling when I go to Starbucks, but I'm a coffee, we won't go there. I could see what he means though. And even though it's a tough business, you see these companies doing everything they can to survive and prosper. It's not just about survival. You want to be making money at the end of the day. Carl, in the crazy current landscape that we do call retail, why do you think that the whole world of retail is still worth it?
Well, it's worth it because we all consume in the first place, so we still need a place to do that. Now, ideally, we'd like to do it in a place that's more meaningful, more engaging, that feels special. And I think that Howard Schultz quote perfectly sums it up, because if I remember, I think that quote came from him visiting a very special store in the middle of Milan, and it really touched his soul, basically. And that was sort of what propelled him to sort of think about the third place and what created the initial success of Starbucks. What is it for us as retailers? I'm still consider myself a retailer, although I'm no longer as close as I once was as an operator. Is the energy. It's the immediacy. It's the opportunity to engage with people, get real-time reactions, understand where they're coming from, where they're going, and trying to catch them in between. So for me, there's no other industry that has that energy, that sense of immediacy. And for that, for our students, that's often what we're promoting as well, is this idea that if you want to work in a high energy environment, know that what you're doing is having an impact in almost real time. There's no better industry.
I believe the store you're referring to is the Starbucks Reserve in Milano, which is something, if ever you've had the chance to visit, you should, because it is that third place where you do want to spend a lot of time. We know that a lot of these brands that we're talking about succeed, and we also know, sadly, some of them don't succeed. Eric Pearson was asked, Eric Pearson, by the way, is the CIO of International Hotel Group, IHG. He was asked, hey, what do you think your secret to brands succeeding in the retail sector? And here's something else that 20, 30, 40 years ago you certainly would never have heard. He said, it's no longer the big beating the small, but it's the fast beating the slow. And that, for companies like my own, that we're a very small company, that's music to our ears, because that now puts us on equal footing with much bigger brands, and it gives us the leverage that we need. Charles, what do you think, in your experience, that it takes to go into retail and be successful? Was he onto something? Is it about speed? What other factors play a role?
Well, first and foremost, I run or co-run a school dedicated to retail. Some of you may think we only serve the big. That's often the case. We're right now doing a training program on the future of retail and how to be successful in retail. And in the room, I'd say 70% of the people we have in the room are smaller players, and down to some of them with one store, people that Carl knows well. So that's the first thing. The second thing is we work a lot with smaller companies. So last term, for a relatively small unit within McGill, we were working with 18 Quebec SMEs in one form or another. So I think maybe I can do it as an observer, although you might say creating a retail school is an entrepreneurial venture, so I can talk about that. But I'm going to I've been listening to Carl. We're doing regional roadshows across Quebec talking to SMEs. We were just in Charlevoix on Monday. We're here tonight. But I'm going to use a couple of terms that he holds dear. So I'm going to paraphrase my dear friend. So I think the first thing is really a question of mindset. And I don't think there's, at this particular time in such turbulent, transformative time, I think the mindset is probably the critical one. And his word revolves around anticipation. And I would translate that into a certain number of traits. I would say you've got to be agile, you've got to be curious, and you've got to be resilient. And you've got to have that to a certain extent on steroids if you're going to go into retail and survive in retail, okay? But you know, if you don't check those boxes, I think you're in real trouble over the long term. Maybe not in the short term, but over the long term. And then the second thing, which I think is so fundamental, most people would say data, because I've just been in an AI and data analytics day, so I can tell you a little bit more about that. I do think it's really critical. A lot of people will tell you the future of retail is data. I tend to disagree. I don't know anybody in retail that buys data. You buy into a community, you buy products, you buy services, you engage, you buy into the story of a brand. Data may help that, but if you haven't done that homework really well, you're not going to succeed. A lot of people in this room might tell me, oh, sustainability is a great play right now in order to start up. I'd say it's a terrible play right now, because you have to have sustainability as part of your proposal. It's a must-have, not a differentiator anymore. You can differentiate yourself on sustainability, but you better have a bloody good story to tell around that that's going to make you different to somebody else. Just telling me you want to get into circular economy, you want to transform carrots because you've heard that the carrots leftovers will make great jackets, probably not a great story. You'll save the carrot remains, but you probably won't create a great business. So I would say, for me, differentiation is a big thing that Carl talks about. And he has 4 quadrants. One is price, one is accessibility. I think those are areas that if you're starting up as an entrepreneur, it's not going to work. He can go into a lot more detail about those 2 bottom quadrants. Top part is, what is your brand proposition and what makes your experience worthwhile? And you may think your experience is worthwhile, but what makes it more worthwhile than other people's experience? So I really think those 2 top quadrants, so differentiation and anticipation around a certain mindset, would be what I would say would be successful. Did I do a good representation of your?
It checks in the mail.
But it's so true. And I promise I won't give you too many of my stories, but we sell a product. Lots of people sell fried dough. Some people, your neighborhood bakery charges $1 for fried dough. It's called a donut. We sell it for $8, $8.50. We have to justify to the client why the premium. And it's not just, I like to think the product's better, but it's the story behind the product. It's such a critical part.
You're crushing my dreams. First I thought you were Filipino, and now you're telling me I'm eating donuts every time I go there.
Flat donuts. When you meet American friends and we tell them what a beaver tail is, I'm a vegetarian. I don't eat beavers. And we tell them there's no beaver in a beaver tail. So it's a lot of education, Every company wants to sell more. And everybody wants to find, especially in the market that we're currently in, if you could, bring up your sales even marginally, that could be the difference between survival and not making it. And we to do that, Paul Graham, he's the co-founder of the startup accelerator called Y Combinator. He said, you can't wait for customers to come to you. This kind of ties in eerily to what was just being discussed. You can't wait for customers to come to you. You have to figure out where they are, go there, and bring them back to your store. Again, this is new. This is not the way it was 20, 30 years ago. Jennifer, time that I pick on you, what is Euro Naturals doing to prosper during what we all agree are somewhat turbulent times right now, to get the customers, not necessarily in your case, but on your website, and to try to buy a product?
I think it's exactly what you just said. It's meeting the customers where they are. So these days, you can't just have a Shopify store anymore. You need to be on Amazon and maybe consider Walmart, and it's diversifying in those different channels, because like in my experience during COVID, we saw Shopify really spiked and things that Amazon did well, but maybe it was a little worse than Walmart, or one will fall and the other will kind of like keep us there and in a safe place. So I feel like diversifying is a really good answer these days.
We saw that too. And again, I'm going to share some stories, we're all learning. We had, when COVID first hit, you mentioned COVID, we had one of our operators had a trailer, a mobile trailer. He used to go to festivals. All the festivals were shut down. And he called and he said, do you guys mind if I have some inventory before it perishes? I'd like to go to an event and sell some beaver tails. And he went to a parking lot in a Canadian Tire. And we said, look, knock yourself out. I don't know if people are feeling comfortable to go, but it's outdoors, try it. And he came back and he told us what he did over 3 days. At first we're like, no, not for the month, for the 3 days. He shared those figures with us. We posted them on our internal website. We use Workplace. And all our mobile operators started calling their local IGAs, their local Canadian Tires, And they pivoted almost instantly through no credit of the head office. I mean, this was an operator who came up with an idea and said, there's an opportunity here. And it was almost an accident where he wanted to liquidate some stock. But we started a whole brand new business there. And after COVID, we have trucks doing marriages and birthday parties, and we're now sold territories across the country for a business that never even existed before. So there are many great opportunities to take advantage of that. Now, I know you mentioned data. I'm going to get into technology a bit, but I'm going to throw this one to Carl. I'm going to mark my words carefully here.
If you want. I'm fine to talk about data.
Well, I think we wouldn't, we can't ignore the elephant in the room in the sense that we're all learning about AI, right? We keep hearing AI. When I dug up this quote, I had to really fact check it because I said, this can't be true. And as a numbers person, when I see big numbers, I'm like, it can't be true. But let me start by telling you the quote. Angie Solanki, she is the National Director of Services and Practices Group, and she made this statement early in 2024, and it pertains to 2023. So very recent data, very pertinent. She stated, over the past year, 69%, not 6.9, 69% of retailers credited AI with increasing their annual revenue, while 72% saw a decrease in operating costs thanks to AI. I read that and I'm like, do we need staff? Because maybe the AI could just run the whole show here. And I know it's a loaded question, and I know it comes with its own set, but Carl, we have more information. I like to say sometimes we have too much information and you don't know where to start because that's the flip side of too much information. But how can a company operating in the retail space leverage this huge world of data and, if you will, this animal that we now call AI?
That's sort of like asking if we were in 1995, how's the internet going to shape retail? I mean, the parallels are pretty much similar, or what mobile in 2004. I mean, we're so early in the process. The nice thing so far, and one of the things I do is I teach emerging technologies and new business models at the Binson School, so I have a disproportionate amount of time to think about this stuff. And what happens is often each new technology wave the good news for us in the room here, seems to democratize the access to technology. So in 1995, if you wanted to launch a website, it was pretty complicated. And it wasn't something that you could just set up. And then mobile, when it came out, same thing, was a bit more, it was still complicated, but not as complicated as setting up web. And now, I don't know how many of you in the room are using Copilot, or using Grammarly, or using any one of these, any of the LLMs or ChatGPT. I mean, we all have access to it. The ChatGPT you have access to is the same that the largest corporations in the world have access to right now. They could tweak it a bit more than you can, but fundamentally it's the same tool. So I think the idea is, think 1995, the internet is starting, what are you going to do? And that's what AI as an opportunity. Now, to Charles' point, it's important. Let's not go all in and just think about the technology. Let's think about the purpose. Let's think about how we're going to leverage AI to differentiate and be meaningful to our customers. But the tools that we're going to have to do that are just getting incrementally more powerful at a speed that even for people like me to spend probably too much time looking at this is really quite overwhelming. So you don't have to jump onto everything. You don't need to do every latest AI trend just because it's there. But if it helps you, if it makes you more meaningful, more engaging, more relevant, then full on go for it. Because it's like missing in 1990. If you were Toys R Us or Target in 2000 saying, we don't need this e-commerce thing, we'll let Amazon manage that for us. It didn't turn out so well for them. So I don't think you want to necessarily follow that sort of philosophy and really try to understand at least where the opportunities are with the technology.
And does anybody on the panel have an example, a real world example, maybe without mentioning any names, but of a company that would have used AI? And how, is it as simple as, how can I drive up sales by 10%? Or is there more to it than something like that?
Actually, there's less to it. I think most of the AI that we're seeing the success is working in the background. We're not even necessarily aware of what it's doing. There's a lot of, we have people at the school that do the demand prediction, pricing optimization. These things are just happening more and more naturally. If any of you are using any kind of CRM, even the most sort of entry-level CRM where they're trying to predict your customer cycles and saying, hey, this group of customers hasn't bought in 6.3 weeks right now, you should probably retarget them with a promotion or an offer, and these things are there. AI is like the word internet. It means so many things, but there is some algorithms jumping in here and doing their thing. So it's around us everywhere. The social media that we use, everything, it's there. Now you can use it to do some creative stuff. You can do it to do some operational stuff, some supply chain. I mean, you can do it at all sorts of levels. I don't know, a specific example of one use case of somebody that used it to get a 12% increase in whatever. I mean, I'm sure there's a lot of them out there, but I don't think for the people in the room it's necessarily relevant that one case.
I was going to add real quick, we started using AI with Google ads and Facebook ads, and that's very powerful. That's new and it's really helping. It's great, yeah.
If people are looking for help out there and they're in a small and medium-sized space, we had a day today on AI and data analytics, animated by a superstar professor in the AI and retail space called Maxime Cohen at McGill. But he has co-started with 3 other people a company called Genia, and they're specialized in using Gen AI to help small and medium-sized companies. And he came in with a whole bunch of different examples depending on what functional area you're looking at, and he actually recommended as the 2 first areas to look at because they're the least sensitive for eventually even ethical reasons, or for what do you call it, the mind fake or whatever, is actually on marketing and sales. Just because if you get into HR issues and it starts doing things to the person, then you get into a little bit more problems. So, and he had a whole bunch of examples in different companies. But as Carl said, we can go into more details. But he actually, one thing that he did say, which is a little bit counter to what Carl was just saying, not necessarily counter, is because you can do kind of cool things now with Gen AI relatively cheaply. Don't do it for something minor. Do it for something important to the company, which is kind of an interesting thing. You'd sort of say, okay, an emerging technology, be a little bit careful, but I mean, don't think it's going to solve your problem. Double check, triple check, whatever, but don't necessarily gamble small on it, which is kind of an interesting take on it.
I would never have thought it that way, but it makes perfect sense. We all know that you could probably check and see, was this driven by AI? So that makes perfect sense where you're using it on such a macro level that it might kind of get hidden in there. So a couple of the panelists mentioned about omni-channel sales. So I want to spend a bit of time on that. I'm going to go sideways a bit. Mark Benioff, he was the co-founder and CEO of Salesforce. He said the future of communicating with customers rests in engaging with them through every possible channel. Phone, email, chat, web, social networks. Customers are discussing a company's products and brand in real time, and companies need to join the conversation. I think that's a super, we hate to find out feedback on our products through any kind of feedback tool that's a month late to the party. What's the point? You're too late. This has to happen in real time. Carl, maybe if you can spend a few minutes discussing what omni-channel sales are, just for everyone's benefit, and how do you use it? How do you leverage it? How do you decide which way am I going to go on this? It is, we only have a few minutes, so I hate to ask this question. He's not going to be able to do it full justice, but if you want to just maybe pepper us with a summary statement.
I was going to say, how many hours do we have? So, I mean, the whole idea of omni-channel became a really strong term in our industry about 10 years ago as the proliferation of digital channels started to appear. And the idea of omni was, as Mr. Benioff just sort of was quoted, was to be everywhere all the time. Reality is, an industry, we're sort of backing away a bit from that. I think it's became overwhelming, quite honestly. And the reality is, not all channels deliver the same value. So it's more important to be discerning as to which channels are the ones that are right for your brand, for the promise you have, for the connection you have with your customers, and own those channels properly. So you're better to be invested in a couple of them properly than to try to spray and pray which was 5-10 years ago sort of where we were headed as an industry. So actually the CEO of Walmart, Doug McMillon, in his latest call talked about adaptive retail. So we're moving from omni-channel to adaptive. We're just trying to find these opportunities, own what we think is going to be the right place for us. And this is the different social channels, now even the CRM, the email campaigns, the text, all these different channels that we have. Let's focus on the ones that we know we can deliver value on and differentiate ideally. Just quickly backtracking, the danger with AI and what we're talking about sort of ties into this is as much as the technology democratizes, it sort of level sets for everybody and makes us the same. So taking these channels and differentiating on them that really are true to your brand and what you're standing for, that's I think what you want to do and be, as Mr. McMillan calls it, adaptive and hopefully even prescriptive.
And I think that's a recurring message, right? Focus. Don't spread everything so thin and try to do everything to everyone. Choose the channels that work best for you, for your product, for your customers, and focus your energy on that. And speaking of focusing, companies all the time are asking themselves, what can I do to differentiate myself from others, right? Simon Sinek, I'm a huge Simon Sinek fan. He said, people don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. And in the example I gave earlier, us selling an $8 piece of dough, there has to be a story or you're not gonna have that repeat business. Jennifer, I wanted to know a bit from yourself, what are you guys doing? How are you differentiating yourself in the current market? I know you mentioned a fantastic story that you did this for the good, to help people. But what other aspects of your business differentiate yourself from your competitors, from the other stories out there?
Well, I did something that was very uncomfortable for me, and recently I took the advice of many people and put myself out there and my face and became my brand, which I'd been putting off for a long time. I don't love speaking in front of people. I like to help, but like in small crowds, and getting out there on social media was really hard.
Pretty good.
This isn't super comfortable, but I'm here. And so getting out there on social media was really hard. So I think being your brand and being the face, people these days want to see that. That makes you really unique. You can tell your story the way nobody else can tell it. People see that and they understand. They want to connect with you as the owner and as the brand. And that's really important. So if you're uncomfortable, there's ways to do it that it's a little bit easier, but I highly recommend. No one else can be you. And I think that's really important. So.
Two great stories, Jennifer, I'm telling you. We've been talking about companies, and I've always, third person, companies and technology, but we all know the strongest strength of any company is its employees. And the world is changing. With everything that's going on in the retail world, there surely must be a change on staff. And what's required from them, attitude, we've seen that. John Zimmer, he's the co-founder of Lyft, the ride service. He stated that empowered and well-trained employees are the heart and soul of delivering outstanding customer experiences. He basically empowers them to do what's necessary to make sure that the client has a great experience. That sounds so easy, right? And so obvious. But doing it, I know if I would tell my staff, well, every time something happens, just give them a free product, you're almost sending the wrong message and it's almost demeaning the product, if you will. So I'm wondering, how do you train this? How do you do this? And we're lucky, we're blessed, we have two gentlemen here tonight who are forming the next generation of employees. What gives? What could schools and what could the education system, how do companies teach staff these new requirements, these new skill sets that are required to deal with this changing landscape?
It's not an easy answer. I was just thinking of what do we do that differentiates us to other things that are out there. I think you know, what happens and I'm looking at it now from a faculty of management or a business school. So it's you know, business schools train in functional areas. What is great about what we do is we bring in, you know, you can want to go down the finance route, the marketing route, the data analytics route, the supply chain route, HR route, but what we do is we allow you to apply it to an industry. So one of the things that's really important in what we're trying to do in developing the skill sets is give them experiential opportunities to do so that they can put that into practice with real companies, real problems, and we do that through class projects that we do, through internships. We have amazing internships with smaller companies that I can tell you about. We run competitions. We have one in particular that's called the Retail Innovation Challenge that's done. We write 3 case studies on a particular angle around SMEs, so what could be of concerns today. We did circular economy last year. This year we're going to probably do transmission from one generation to another, which may not be the startup part of it, but which is an essential part of what's happening in the Quebec ecosystem, is how you transmit that to the next generation. So I'd say the experiential side. Then on what other things that we try and do, there's a great demand in companies, and now I'm going to contradict myself, for analytical skills and data analytics. So we do want to put out into the workforce people that can give that edge very quickly, because retailers historically have not necessarily, they've grown from the shop floor up, so they're not always analytical. So I'd say that's another area. And then I love the quote by somebody called Henry Mintzberg that some of you may know. He's probably the greatest management guru at McGill, and probably one of the greatest in the world today. And he basically says the heart of successful management lies at the crossroads of managerial science. I just talked about that. Craft, which is where you develop your experience and your intuition and your heart to a certain extent. And magic. So that can come through visioning, but it can also through, you know, you go back to what you were saying about Howard Schultz. How do you create that magic? And to a certain extent, if you can try and develop those, at least some appreciation for those skill sets, that's really important, while building the agility and the resilience that we were talking about before. So quite a complicated equation to try and make them ready for the workforce, but I think we do a pretty good job given our placements and the appreciation we have from class projects, returns from the people that we put in there, and internships or full-time placements. Sorry.
I'm actually going to continue on that point, because I know there's something going on at McGill that I really want Charles to touch on. Eric Nordstrom, so he's the CEO of Nordstrom department stores. He said retail is a customer business. You're trying to take care of the customer, solve something for the customer. And there's no way to learn that in the classroom, so sorry, my dear professor friends, but we'll see, this will come full circle. There's no way to learn that in the classroom or in the corner office or away from the customer. You've got to be in front of the customer. And what I love about what McGill is doing is they know there's a lot that could be taught in the classroom, but at a certain point you've got to get in front of the customer. And I'd like you to maybe talk about the store that McGill has set up, because nobody knows this story. And again, you pass by it, if you're downtown Montreal, you pass by this place all the time and you don't realize what's going on behind those walls. So Charles, do you want to share that?
Okay, I really go back to Aldo Ben-Sadoun and his vision for the retail school, as a successful entrepreneur, by the way, as you probably know a little bit about his story, and the McGill team that put what we call the Memorandum of Understanding together. And I came later than that. And one of the things that they wanted to do that they thought would be a key differentiator for the school was to have a retail lab. Now, it was an idea. So we identified a space. It's on the corner of McTavish and Sherbrooke, and with a total, had no idea what we wanted to do. So there was discussion of doing WeWork space for entrepreneurs. We do pop-ups for whoever, startups or whoever wanted to do pop-ups. And then came a very structuring proposal. Couche-Tard, who I think some of you know from another great Montreal-based entrepreneur, now the biggest company in Canada, decided to partner with us to do a totally live environment. So for those of you that might have gone by, you'd think it's a Couche-Tard store. It is a fully functioning Couche-Tard store, slightly different in the way that it's functioning, just in terms of the product offering, because they can't sell alcohol nor tobacco-based products on campus. But bar that, we sell pretty much the entire offering of Couche-Tard, and it doubles as, well, for Couche-Tard, it's a place to innovate. It's a place to connect with consumers that they don't necessarily connect with, which are younger, educated people on a campus. They tend to be in other spots. Test innovations for them, and for us to be an incredible retail space. So if you go in there, just visiting it this afternoon, we have cameras on the ceilings. Don't be afraid. It's anonymized data. And by the way, McGill is much more stringent than any, or university environment is much more stringent than any government will be in terms of protecting privacy and stuff like that. So, and so what's really cool about it from a lab perspective, especially if you think about it from an academic perspective, is most of the time these places are closed environments. Right? You're testing, you have to simulate, you have to make hypotheses, you have to hire fictional consumers to try and act like consumers or patients or whatever you're going to do. I was going to use the word labbing, but it's not. That's probably you're going to do your lab experiments about. But whatever we do, you see the proof in the pudding right away. So we've done a lot of experiments with Couche-Tard on contactless and frictionless technologies in stores. So part of it is on contactless payments, but it tends to be broader than that. We also do tests on how you nudge towards certain types of offerings. So in this particular instance, nudging towards healthier offerings. So, and how customers react to that. So it's kind of it's been a cool adventure. And because it's one point of sale, we actually on our road shows, we always start by that example because we have a way of animating and a story to tell, which I think is pretty interesting for the people in the room and relatable, even though it's the biggest company in Canada, to what somebody can do with one store. Yes, this company has more resources than the number of people in the room, but there's a lot of learnings that are transferable to a company of any size.
So I'm going to divulge that on Saturday, sometimes when I'm bored, I go in there and I just play with the merchandise just to skew everything that they're trying to learn. So you don't have to do what I'm doing, but
I don't. Well, first of all, there's a lot of cameras watching you up in the ceiling.
I don't mind.
But we also we're one of the first to have cameras in the shelves to see when products are going missing and stuff like that. So
I didn't say I took.
Not missing in terms of just like relocated and stuff.
So we've decided we're going to publish a list of the top biggest culprits.
Especially the Saturday morning ones.
And we wouldn't like to tell you who's in the top 3, but one of them is in the room right now.
I have a very boring life, apparently. Do we have time for one more? I don't see the time. Yeah. I want to throw one more at Jennifer. Jennifer, I want you to start, and I'm going to let you close off on this as well. E-commerce. So I know you talked about it. It's become obviously a critical component, especially a company like yourself. Tony Di Ioia, he's the founder and CEO of Zappos. And what I found interesting about him, he said, we take most of the money that we could have spent on paid advertising, and instead we put it back into the customer experience. And then we let our customers be our marketing. So think about that. Instead of blowing the money on print, and this is what these guys are doing. And it's true. I stopped and thought about it. I said, I don't see many ads for Zappos. It's really an online, and they want their customers talking to other customers. So what do you think of that, Jennifer? How do you think you could optimize your company's experience and on the e-commerce world?
It's pretty hard not to advertise these days, so I don't believe that they're not advertising, but maybe it's not a big part of their strategy. I was curious how many people in the room have an e-commerce store or want to start there, like hands up, like, yeah, okay. I found it the easiest way to kind of get going, like I said earlier, bigger reach and less of an investment and all of that. So for those that are looking to get started, it's picking, your platform. Shopify is kind of like, not to throw names out there, but it's kind of king these days. It's a Canadian company. They and other e-com companies have tons of resources available, free tools. They have little mini universities, and just throw yourself in, dig in, learn it all. And then you can just start working with other brands, co-marketing, and like doing some things like that. SEO is still king. There's a little bit of debate. Google's been doing some funny things lately, and so there's a debate on how much longer SEO is going to be king. But if you're in the digital e-commerce space, that's still super important. And I talk to a lot of like new e-com businesses that have not started setting up their SEO when they went live, and I find that's a huge mistake. Something we did from the beginning, and it's just done nothing but help us over the years. And it's not difficult. It's something. I guess it's very specific. If you follow the rules and you get going, it's not so hard. And I find that that's a really good way to get started as well. E-com specifically, let me think of what else. You got to collect your customers' data, and there's a lot of legalese and things that you have to follow these days, but that is really important because then you have their information. It's easy to remarket to them. Once you have them in your list, that's key. So getting that from day one, collecting emails is hugely important. It's remarketing to them and being able to communicate your message to them constantly and bringing them back. So that's just a quick little list.
Did we do the rounds? Did we touch the bases that you guys were hoping? Because if we didn't, the good news is we're going to open up to you guys now, and it's going to give you guys a chance to see what we missed.
I wish I could tell you a little more detail. I have a marketing person that does this for me. And there's certain campaigns you can run with AI. With Google, it's called Pro Max. It's relatively new. I don't know, you might know a little bit more than me about the details. But yeah, it's just you throw up all your photos and a bunch of copy, and then Google and Facebook will like determine which ads to show to which people, and then like show one more than the other. And it does a lot of the thinking for you. Whereas before you had to create all these individual campaigns and monitor each individually. And this one is smart learning, and it decides what to share. So do you guys know more about that than me?
Yeah, well, I mean, I think that's one good example. I've seen some AI right now where they will, by uploading the picture, will give you the whole product description that's optimized for the SEO already in there. And the firms will do this, they'll charge maybe $1.50 per image, and then they'll give you all the copy. You can even tell what kind of fabric it is. It could recognize all the attributes of the product. It's, if you're looking for the name of it it's called Velou, is one in France that I've come across recently. Vellou. I just met them not too long ago and introduced them to a couple of companies here. And I got a product demo, and they wanted to get more information. I said, all you have is what's on the website. So go find the images there and come back. And it was pretty impressive what they can come across with. I'm sure there are others. I don't want to promote just that one, but that's the one that recently came to mind and did the demo that really worked well. So that's just one example, and then obviously all the other generative stuff that you can use. I feel bad for two categories of workers right now: translators, because you can easily have the AI just translate your site into all the languages in the world, and photographers who are not the true artistic photographers, the ones that are just doing product photography, because now there's a bunch of solutions out there too that can throw your clothes onto a model that looks pretty good for your website as well. So, I mean, we're just scratching the surface, but that's some of the kind of quick examples that I've seen.
Have you seen the influencer? Oh man, there's some new AI tools that it'll create an influencer for you, and they are so realistic. It's a little scary, honestly.
What you were pointing to, what AI is very good at is A/B testing. So you can quickly get a lot of A/B testing going on very fast, and it will figure out which attributes, which elements are the ones that are resonating with your customers more, and will keep optimizing. The danger with that, keep coming back to, is your competitors will have access to these same tools as well. So if you're using that to differentiate, you might want to think about adding more than just using those kind of baseline technologies now.
I think if it's coming, we should try it. Why not? Who knows how long we'll have it? But some of my biggest, we'll see. So don't throw all your eggs in that one basket. But I have some of my biggest competitors that I've been watching them grow exponentially using TikTok Shop and ads, and they're just like, it was so hard waiting. So I'm so glad to hear that. I'm really happy about that.
Just know that TikTok, as a shopping e-commerce platform, since it started in China, now their sales are as big as Amazon. So.
Well, it's already here, right? I mean, TikTok is, in terms of, and one thing, it's really important to understand the difference between e-commerce and e-influence. They kind of collide at some point, but the idea, we focus a lot on e-commerce and the transactional, but e-influence is actually way more important. So how do you get the customer's attention on the path to purchase? So if anything, you could already start, I mean, I'm sure you're already good at TikTok and getting a lot of your traffic, and even the small business that was running, that Charles was referring to, is a soccer shop on the 40. I mean, 80% of her traffic's coming from TikTok. She's a one-store shop, and she basically now has one person just managing TikTok for her around the clock, and it's paying off in spades, she's told us. And they do Instagram and the other stuff too, but that's the e-influence. Once the e-commerce comes in, and that's TikTok Shop, which we heard this week that they're actually reallocating their European resources to North America, primarily obviously the US, but we hope Canada will come in there too. I mean, their algorithm is levels above anything else we've seen so far in terms of recommendation. So it's super powerful. There are geopolitics we need, and that's the reason why you don't want to put all your eggs in that basket. But I think you have no choice. If what you're doing is remotely tied to trend, you have no choice, but you have to at least try to figure it out. So you're referring to hallucinations. So the idea that it's true, that's the technical term. I mean, whenever AI gives you the wrong information, the technical term is it's hallucinating. So it's getting, each version is getting better and better at catching that, because it just keeps on training exponentially. But 100%, and when I say I feel bad for translators and photographers, don't think I'm putting them all in the same basket. There's still some translators and definitely photographers that we really need to make a difference. But it's getting better and better, and the curve of it is it's kicking up. So from what I saw from the predecessor to ChatGPT 3 to what we already are right now, I mean, we were maybe, I would say a year and a half ago was 75, 80% good. Now it's like 95. And imagine what it's going to be in another year. So, but to your point, how do you catch it? How do you catch hallucinations? The same way we grade our papers. No, it's true. We tell the students, and we can tell them all day long, don't use ChatGPT. And we try to have software to catch that they're using that as a plagiarism, and there's a whole debate in the academic community around this. But the reality is it's a tool. But what I warn my students is if it hallucinates, you better know enough about your topic to catch it. Because if I catch it, you're going to, with the powerful tools you have now to write papers, if you're making mistakes like that, I mean, that means you're really not doing the work. Did you ask ChatGPT?
No, I have not.
Step one.
I would definitely. I mean.
And you know why ChatGPT specifically is there's been a lot of talk about we're giving all this information on Instagram and TikTok and everything, but think about all the. I'm big. I share a lot on LinkedIn, and who's the biggest investor in ChatGPT is Microsoft, that owns LinkedIn. So I suspect the information from LinkedIn is being scraped quite vigorously.
I just want to jump in on the talent side of things that somebody said from, I think it was the head of data for Microsoft yesterday in our training program, said that ChatGPT may not replace workers. But workers that use ChatGPT will replace those that don't. But I'd be just because we're it's the buzz thing of the moment. For having worked in this space and looking at this space, observing this space, I'm not saying that Gen AI won't transform things. I think it's transformative, but a year ago in retail, a year and a half ago, we were talking about the metaverse. And so, you know, metaverse was it. Microsoft had a chief metaverse officer, and in 2 seconds flat, that department doesn't exist anymore. I'm not saying that that's not going to happen with AI, but I don't think you're going to create great businesses because you use AI. Once again, I'm going back to data. You know, if you don't have the right brand proposal, if you don't have a great differentiating story to tell, I don't care whether you're using AI or you hire the best data scientists in the world, you're not going to be anywhere, right? So I'd be a little bit cautious. We're getting a lot of questions around AI, which is the thing of the moment. And a lot of people get excited, and the executives we have in our room today were in the same spirit. But you know, you can easily go down that rabbit hole and lose yourself, right? If you're not careful.
I teach digital marketing as well and segmentation, and I don't like generational biases. I don't like the idea of, you know, Gen Z's this way, Gen X is that way, et cetera. So it's not going to directly answer your question, but just be careful to think in those terms, especially now with all the data we have. I mean, I know 7-year-olds that would fit the Gen Z category a lot more than in some Gen Zs that would be more like a 70-year-old. So just be careful about especially now with all the data we have on people and the way they engage with us. Try to go beyond just sort of the generational tagging that we're quick to do. So a little food for thought there.
Yeah, now the segmentation goes much more into behavioral patterns, right? Before the segmentation went by age, now, or by gender or whatever.
And
now
psychographics.
It's really much more by behavioral patterns than
I mean, there are some, you know, I think some generally accepted. Obviously, a 20-year-old was more digitally native from start because that's all they've always had. But I know some 20-year-olds that are not into technology, and I know some 70-year-olds that are way into technology. So I wouldn't want to complete. So absolutely, the behavioral aspect I think is key. And I you know, sort of tongue-in-cheek tell my students that if you start bucketing by generation, it's just lazy marketing. Like you're just not putting the work in, especially with all the data we have access to in the psychographic and behavioral data. And to try to tie it all together to what was being said earlier, you know, we have this first-party data more and more that we're trying to collect on our customers and get not just their email, but what their likes, what they engage with, and we can start creating really rich contextual messaging that relates to them that has very little to do with their age.
I just like to bring one topic that hasn't been brought up, but I think it's so fundamental, and I see it in what we teach, and we don't necessarily teach about it and talk about it, is the product. We're all talking about AI, we're all talking about our consumers, we're eventually talking about brands. We did talk about beaver tail, but not being meat. But I had the opportunity to work for a big competitor in your space, which is the L'Oreal Group. And if there's one thing that L'Oreal does extremely well and has done this generationally well, is put outstanding products into the hands of consumers. And it may be debatable whether they get the right answer for everything, but just look at their performance and the products and the product innovation cycle. Like you think of Kylie Jenner. She came in as a one product wonder. She became a billionaire as a result of it, but she's not been able to reinvent herself and her brand ever since. So, if you're going to be an entrepreneur and you want to go in with a product, also think about what is your innovation cycle. Now, if you're answering a specific need that's virtually medical product that you're talking about, in which case you don't need to innovate as much. You just need to resolve the pain point. But I would just not forget product. You think of companies like Nike. Nike may be having problems, but Nike always comes back stronger, has always come back stronger in part because of how strong they are in product.
Jennifer, I'll let you go
That's
for that.
tough because I'm one of those merchants that gets like millions of emails every day, and it's like delete, delete, delete. I think the ones that get my attention are where they really take the time to talk to me about my product and how they can help specifically, like numbers and like referencing things, and I would say those are the ones that I pay attention to. It's also when you just happen to reach me at the right time, like I might have hit delete, but then like I needed somebody for TikTok, and then the TikTok email came through, and I'm like, oh, I'll go check it out. I often look for like apps and things in the Shopify store, but that doesn't help you. I'm trying to think of, gosh, how would I don't know.
Do
Let me think
referrals work well? Like if somebody
Oh yeah, referrals, always, yes. So I'm in a lot of networking groups, and so yeah, if they can refer someone, always. I always go to some specific networking groups for female founders, and that's where I get almost all my contacts these days.
I'm a big fan of building community, and I go back to actually another sort of beauty reference that was, I think, really good at Glossier. I mean, the Emily Weiss story, how she basically started off by blogging about skincare and beauty products, and she got so much rich feedback from her community that she was building that she just wanted to sort of go out and share best practices that people said, well, why don't you do this product? Well, you have this great idea. And she built this huge community, so she hit the ground running, basically. As soon as she started launching her first products, they did very well, and then they went through some troubles and got acquired. But regarding that launch, this idea of community, and this is exactly this is a perfect example. Yes is a community. You're here, you're part of it, you're asking the questions, you're gonna have people around you. So as many communities you can engage with. Charles is on the board of the Quebec Retail Council, another great community to consider and engage with and find ways to connect, because the cold email, LinkedIn, whatever thing is really rough. Jennifer, I'm sure gets dozens, if not hundreds, a day of these sort of requests. So the way they show up in person, talk to people, and build sort of a strong nucleus that are going to become sort of your ambassadors, that you're going to support the heck out of. You're going to, they won't be profitable for you, but they're going to help you grow the business and start creating those network effects. That for me is community building, and that I think is sort of step one today to get you through the noise.
Don't call yourself, yes, you're going to call yourself a marketplace for sure, because that's what the technical term is, but what is your community? I think if you start thinking about it that way, you're a marketplace looking at merchants. It sounds a little bit like real estate companies that own malls that want tenants, right? And right now, the whole mindset that I don't think a lot of mall owners have and should have is, how do you not look at these people as tenants and look at them as part of your community? That because before, if you think of the mall model, if one tenant left, you replace it. Well, now it's not so easy anymore. So you got to look at it from a totally different lens. And so I would say, if you're a marketplace, well, think of yourself as a community that's going to engage with merchants who are your partners and who can become your ambassadors. I think if you start thinking about it that way, and that may take time. You may not have the time because you got to get this marketplace up and running, but I think, maybe not in the short term, but in the medium, long term, if you're not thinking that way, I think it's going to be a lot more challenging for you over time, because there are tons of marketplaces out there. It's not easy to emerge from the noise, and you may have a unique proposition, but if you're able to build a community, I think then you've got a chance.
Thank you.
So I teach a course in creative. It's mostly around fashion, but if I think about it more broadly, first of all, I go into beauty and I go into luxury, and I just think it's the basic principles of creative brands. One exercise I get my students to do, which I think is a very, very powerful exercise, is I get them to compare, and many of you will know the brands, some of you may not know the brands, but tell me the story, a differentiated story between Chanel, Dior, and Saint Laurent. Okay? Because if you think about those brands, they all have the name of the founder in it. They're all Parisian-based, or at least French-based, but at least most of them started in Paris. They're all in the luxury space, principally selling to women the same type of products at the same price point. That's a lot already in the story. That's quite a lot there, you know. And you can go down that path a little bit further. So how do you make sure that you are telling a differentiated story between those three brands? And when they get it right, the brand does extremely well. When they get it wrong, and some of these people are really good at it. I'm really giving you extreme examples because this is not easy to do. It's really not an easy exercise to do. But what they do really well is they often get back to the origin story. So what made Chanel Chanel, as Gabrielle Chanel? They all kill their founders at one point because they have to modernize at one point and they kill their heritage. So Yves Saint Laurent was the last one. It's now become Saint Laurent because it needed to modernize itself under Yves Slimane. But now that Yves Slimane modernized it, it had to go back and become a little bit more steeped in its heritage, which Dior did when Galliano killed the Christian and Dior. At the end of Galliano's reign as a creative director, they had to go back and rediscover the heritage of the brand. So they're much more down the path of what you're doing, but I find it so interesting to do that because it just shows how difficult it is to tell a differentiated story that will resonate with consumers over time. You're trying to do it in the short term because you're trying to get a company off the ground, but how do you get it to resonate over time? And I find that's not an easy exercise to do, and I would not give it to anybody. And you've really got to think about it. And once you get to one level of your story, how can you get lower and lower down in your story that makes it resonate? And think of how you'd like to tell the story. I always tell them, I don't care how you tell the story. Tell the story as if you're a bedside story to your child, but bring some emotion. We all think we're supposed to be their rational individuals, so we throw rational facts at them. Well, you know what made Apple so great, and they did behavioral or psychometric analysis of it. People didn't relate to Apple here; they related to Apple here, and they related. That's all the other players in the IT space related to their consumers here. Apple is the only brand, now there are probably more, that where it was an emotional response, not necessarily a functional need that they had to answer.
I hope that we've helped you on your journey. I hope there's more clarity than when you came in tonight. That's the goal. This is a journey. It's not going to start and end tonight. This is about heading in the right direction, and hopefully you found the way. So thank you very, very much.